Fear Switch, The Heart of Candid by Elton Thomas. Chapters 37 through 43. Chapter 37, A Reformed Legacy, Candid's Impact. The reputation of Candid spread gradually but powerfully, reaching beyond the walls of Andrew's dojo and into the hearts of other martial arts communities. Word of the peaceful principles that grounded Candid found its way to neighboring cities, towns, and even to practitioners who had been studying other martial arts for years. The philosophy of peace through strength and resilience, of learning not just to fight, but to master oneself, began to inspire instructors and students alike. Andrew's teachings held a different allure. Where other martial arts often focused on power, dominance, and physical prowess, Candid offered something unique, an invitation to find a strength that existed beyond aggression, to uncover a purpose that went deeper than victory. And it resonated. Slowly, Andrew began receiving messages from instructors in nearby communities, requests to observe his classes, to understand the philosophy that had transformed his students into warriors of peace. One morning, as the sun cast a warm glow over the dojo, Andrew found himself in the center of a group of visiting instructors. They had come from miles around, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and respect as they watched his students move through their drills, each motion controlled, purposeful, a reflection of the philosophy that guided them. Andrew began the session with a simple greeting, his voice calm but filled with purpose. Candid is more than an art form, he said, addressing the group of visitors who had gathered at the edge of the mat. It's a way to live, a philosophy rooted in the belief that true strength lies in control, in the ability to protect and preserve peace. The instructors listened intently, their faces thoughtful, a few of them nodding as they took in his words, understanding the depth of the teaching that lay behind each movement, each technique. For some of them, the idea of strength through peace was new, a perspective that challenged the traditional notions of martial arts that had focused so heavily on combat and power. As the demonstration began, Andrew's students moved through the familiar motions of Candid, their kali sticks slicing through the air in arcs that were smooth, controlled, filled with a grace that reflected their inner strength. Each flutter and flap spoke of discipline, of a commitment to peace, a belief that their power did not lie in the ability to destroy, but in the skill to defend without harm. Max moved with a confidence that had become second nature to him, his face calm, his focus unwavering as he practiced each technique, his movements precise, deliberate. The visiting instructors watched him closely, their expressions shifting from curiosity to admiration as they observed the young man's quiet strength, the way he held himself, the control that radiated from him. One of the instructors, a seasoned martial artist named Leo, stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Andrew, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This is unlike anything I've seen," he admitted, his voice filled with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "In most martial arts, we teach our students to fight, to defend themselves, but this is different." Andrew nodded, a small, understanding smile on his face. "In Candid, we believe that the highest level of skill isn't found in the ability to fight, but in the choice to walk away. To stand firm in the face of aggression without resorting to violence takes a strength that goes beyond the physical." Leo considered this, his expression contemplative as he looked around the dojo, taking in the students, the calm energy that filled the space, the sense of unity that bound them together. "But what happens when you're faced with someone who doesn't share these values?" he asked, a hint of doubt in his tone. "What if they see your restraint as a weakness?" Andrew's gaze softened, his expression filled with a quiet resolve. "It's a risk we take, yes," he replied gently. "But the strength we find in peace isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering ourselves. When we choose peace, we're choosing to be the best version of ourselves, regardless of how others perceive it." Leo nodded slowly, a look of respect in his eyes as he took in Andrew's words, a newfound understanding beginning to settle over him. He glanced at the other instructors, a few of whom were nodding, their expressions thoughtful, filled with a respect that had grown from witnessing the philosophy of Cali-Kai in action. As the session ended, a few of the instructors approached Andrew, their faces filled with admiration, with a quiet gratitude that spoke of the impact his teachings had already had on them. "You've shown us a different way," one of them said, his voice filled with warmth. "I've been teaching martial arts for years, but I think I understand now that there's more to it than just technique or power. Cali-Kai, it's about the heart." Andrew nodded, a small, humble smile breaking through his calm expression. "That's the essence of Cali-Kai. The heart of what we do here is grounded in peace, in resilience. It's about finding a way to live with purpose, with compassion." Word of Cali-Kai's impact continued to spread, reaching even those who had once followed Raja, who had believed in his philosophy of dominance, of power through violence. As more people were drawn to Andrew's message, Raja's influence began to wane. His once feared reputation diminished as his followers gravitated toward the philosophy of Cali-Kai, the promise of a strength that did not rely on fear. Raja, once a powerful force, found himself alone, his followers dispersing, his legacy of aggression overshadowed by the quiet resilience, the peace-centered philosophy that Andrew had championed. The news of Cali-Kai's expansion, of the communities embracing its teachings, only fueled Raja's frustration, a bitter reminder of the power he had lost, the influence that had once been his. Back at the dojo, the students continued to practice, their kali sticks moving in unison, each movement a reflection of the philosophy that had grounded them, that had brought them together as a family, a community. Max had taken on a new role, guiding some of the younger students with a quiet confidence that spoke of his commitment to Cali-Kai, his belief in the power of peace. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the dojo, Max approached Andrew, his face filled with admiration, a spark of determination in his eyes. "Andrew," he began, his voice steady, filled with a quiet conviction. "I want to help Cali-Kai grow, to share what I've learned here with others. I want people to know that they can find strength in peace." Andrew looked at him, a soft smile breaking through his calm expression, a sense of pride filling his gaze. "Max, you already have. Your journey, your resilience, it's an inspiration. And as Cali-Kai continues to grow, I have no doubt that you'll be there to guide others, to show them the way." They stood in silence for a moment, a sense of peace settling over them, a belief that they were part of something greater, something that went beyond the walls of the dojo, a legacy of strength, of resilience that would continue to impact others, a reminder that true power lay in the heart, in the choice to walk a path defined not by violence, but by peace. Chapter 38, Returning to the Source, A Journey to the Roots. The morning air was thick with anticipation as Andrew led his students and several community leaders into the forest, their footsteps quiet on the leaf-covered ground. They moved with reverence, their faces filled with a mixture of curiosity and respect, a sense that they were about to experience something deeper, a connection to the roots of Cali-Kai that went beyond technique or philosophy. For Andrew, this journey into the forest was a return to the source, a pilgrimage to the place where his journey with Cali-Kai had truly begun. He had traveled to the Philippines years ago, immersing himself in the traditional martial art of escrima, drawn to the philosophy, the strength, the heritage that had defined it for centuries. But it was here, in the quiet depths of this forest, that the idea of Cali-Kai had first taken root, blossoming into a philosophy that would come to shape his life, his community, his legacy. As they walked deeper into the woods, Andrew glanced at the faces around him, taking in the quiet expressions of his students. the sense of wonder that radiated from them. Max walked beside him, his collie stick strapped to his side, his gaze filled with anticipation as he looked around, absorbing the serenity, the grounding energy of the forest. "This place feels different," Max said quietly, his voice laced with awe. "Like it's alive, like it's been waiting for us." Andrew nodded, a small, knowing smile breaking through his calm expression. "It has a power of its own," he replied, his voice filled with reverence. "The trees, the earth, the air, they hold memories, echoes of those who have come before us, those who have walked this path in search of peace, of understanding." They reached a small clearing, the canopy above them filtering soft rays of sunlight that bathed the area in a golden glow. Andrew motioned for everyone to sit, to ground themselves in the earth, to feel the connection between themselves and the world around them. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment, letting the stillness settle over him, feeling the pulse of the forest, the life that radiated from every leaf, every branch, every stone. "When I first came here," he began, his voice calm but filled with purpose, "I had just returned from the Philippines, where I had studied escrima. The art of escrima is rooted in tradition, in heritage. It's powerful, dynamic, an expression of the strength and resilience of the Filipino people. I learned much from my time there, from the masters who shared their knowledge, their stories with me." The students listened intently, their faces filled with respect, with a quiet reverence as they absorbed his words, understanding that this was not just a lesson in history, but a sharing of something deeply personal, something that had shaped Andrew's path. "But when I returned," he continued, his gaze drifting over the faces of his students, "I found myself searching for something more. Escrima is powerful, yes, but I wanted to explore a philosophy that went beyond strength, beyond the ability to defend. I wanted to find a way to honor the roots of escrima while creating something that reflected my own beliefs, my commitment to peace." He paused, a soft smile touching his lips as he glanced around the forest, the memories of that transformative time filling his gaze with a quiet intensity. "It was here, in these woods, that Calikai was born. I spent hours, days, in this very clearing, letting the teachings of escrima flow through me, reflecting on the path I wanted to take, the philosophy I wanted to build. And slowly, the idea of Calikai began to take shape, a way of life that honors tradition while embracing the power of peace, the strength of resilience." Max watched him with admiration, a newfound respect shining in his eyes as he took in Andrew's words, the depth of his dedication, the journey that had led him to create Calikai. He felt a surge of pride, a belief that he was part of something far greater than himself, a legacy that was grounded in respect, in compassion, in a commitment to a different kind of strength. Andrew rose to his feet, his movements calm, grounded, filled with a quiet strength that seemed to radiate through the clearing. He lifted his collie sticks, holding them in a stance that mirrored the traditional escrima posture, a reminder of the roots, the heritage that had inspired him. "I want to share with you some of the techniques I learned in the Philippines," he said, his voice steady, filled with purpose. "But remember, the heart of Calikai is not in the technique, but in the intention. Each movement, each strike, each defense, it's all grounded in the commitment to peace, to control. True strength lies in the ability to protect without harm, to preserve without destroying." He began moving through a series of techniques, his collie sticks slicing through the air in precise, controlled arcs, each movement a reflection of the mastery he had gained, the dedication that had defined his journey. His students watched, captivated, their faces filled with admiration, with respect as they observed the grace, the power that radiated from each motion, a silent testament to the philosophy that grounded him. Max stepped forward, mirroring Andrew's movements, his face calm, focused, a reflection of the discipline he had cultivated, the strength he had found within himself. Each flutter, each flap was executed with a grace that spoke of control, of resilience, a reminder that he was not just learning a martial art, but a way to live, a way to find peace in a world that often demanded conflict. As the session continued, Andrew encouraged the students to connect with the forest, to ground themselves in the earth, to feel the energy, the life that pulsed beneath their feet, around them, within them. He led them through a series of breathing exercises, guiding them to find a sense of calm, a connection to the world around them, a belief that they were part of something greater, a legacy that went beyond themselves. Escrima taught me the importance of tradition, Andrew said, his voice calm, steady. But Cali-Kai taught me the power of evolution. We honor the roots, the teachings that came before us, but we also embrace the path forward, the commitment to peace, to resilience. This is our legacy, a legacy of strength grounded in compassion, in the choice to protect, to preserve. The community leaders who had joined them listened with quiet respect, their expressions filled with admiration, a newfound understanding of the depth, the purpose that grounded Cali-Kai. One of the leaders, Councilwoman Torres, stepped forward, her gaze filled with respect as she addressed Andrew, her voice steady, filled with a quiet conviction. "Andrew," she began, her voice warm, sincere, "what you've created here is more than a martial art. It's a way to bring people together, to build a community grounded in values that go beyond physical strength. Cali-Kai is a gift, a legacy that will continue to impact lives, to inspire those who seek a different path." Andrew nodded, a humble smile breaking through his calm expression, a sense of fulfillment settling over him as he took in her words, a reminder of the impact Cali-Kai had already had, the lives it had touched, the strength it had instilled in those who had chosen to walk its path. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the forest, Andrew gathered the group together, his gaze filled with a quiet pride, a belief that they were part of something greater, something that went beyond the confines of the dojo, a legacy of peace that would continue to grow, to flourish. They stood in a circle, their faces illuminated by the soft light of the setting sun, their hearts filled with a sense of unity, a belief that they were not just students of Cali-Kai, but guardians of a philosophy, a way of life that valued peace, resilience, and the courage to choose a path of compassion. And as they returned to the dojo that evening, walking side by side through the forest, they knew that they carried with them a piece of the legacy that had begun in these woods, a legacy grounded in tradition, in the strength of peace, a legacy that would continue to inspire, to guide them, a reminder that true power lay not in dominance, but in the heart, in the choice to walk a path of resilience, of compassion, of peace. Chapter 39. Andrew's Beginnings with Cali-Kai. The day Andrew first set foot in the Philippines was humid and bright, the air thick with the scent of salt from the sea and the chatter of local markets. He had come a long way from his quiet beginnings, driven by a fierce curiosity, a need to understand the roots of martial arts that spoke of depth, of power, of purpose. His mind was clear, intent on finding the source of an art that could blend precision and philosophy into something profound. For weeks, he traveled through the islands, training with various instructors who taught him the basics of escrima, the sharp, fierce techniques that characterized the art of arnis. But each teacher he met told him that the man he truly sought, the one whose techniques lay at the core of escrima's secrets, was Dinjo-Ty. A legendary master, Dinjo-Ty was said to have developed techniques so powerful, they were forbidden to be taught to those deemed unworthy, techniques not for self-defense but to kill. Yet these techniques were still revered, a stark reminder of the history and survival that escrima had once provided to a people under siege. After weeks of searching, Andrew found himself on the edge of a small fishing village, standing before a massive cliff that overlooked a churning turquoise sea. He had finally learned that Dinjo-Ty resided beyond this cliff, hidden within the heart of an ancient underwater cave. The only way to reach him, however, was to leap from the cliff into shark-infested waters below and navigate the darkness of an underwater passage. Standing on the cliff's edge, Andrew's gaze was steady as he looked down at the roiling sea below. He felt the wind whip against his face, tasted the salt on his lips, and heard the distant cries of seabirds echoing off the rock walls around him. Others might have felt a surge of fear, a hesitation, a quickened heartbeat. But for Andrew, there was only a calm curiosity, a focus honed by years of training. He took a deep breath, inhaling the thick air, letting it fill his lungs, steadying his body. With a quiet resolve, he pushed off the edge, diving into the open void. The fall was exhilarating, the rush of wind against his skin, the sensation of weightlessness before the powerful impact of the water swallowed him. The chill of the ocean hit him instantly, cold and bracing, a sharp contrast to the heat of the sun above. He surfaced, gasping for breath, scanning the water around him as he began to swim toward the dark opening in the cliff face that marked the entrance to the cave. But he wasn't alone. From the corner of his eye, Andrew caught a flash of movement beneath the surface, a sleek, gray fin slicing through the water, circling him with silent menace. His heart rate remained steady, his mind calculating, his muscles coiled with anticipation. The sharks moved closer, their forms sleek, powerful, their bodies a blur beneath the water, moving with a grace that was both beautiful and deadly. As the first shark approached, its jaws open in a silent, predatory threat, Andrew didn't flinch. Instead, he clenched his fist, his gaze focused, his body braced. When the shark came within reach, he struck out, his fist connecting with its snout in a swift, powerful blow. The shark veered off, stunned, its sleek form gliding away into the depths. But another shark circled closer, its movements slower, more calculated, its eyes dark and unblinking as it closed in on him. Andrew struck again, a firm punch to its snout that sent it reeling, his movements fluid, unhesitating, each strike delivered with a precision that spoke of years of training, of a mind unfettered by fear. With the sharks momentarily deterred, Andrew turned his focus to the cave entrance, the darkness of the underwater passage looming before him. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with air, his body steady as he plunged beneath the surface, his eyes adjusting to the murky darkness, his movements controlled, deliberate. The underwater cave was narrow, the walls pressing in on either side, the light fading to shadows as he swam deeper, his lungs beginning to burn with the need for air. He focused on his strokes, on the rhythm of his movements, letting his body glide through the water with a calm efficiency, his mind steady, his purpose clear. At last, he emerged into an open chamber, gasping for breath as he broke the surface, the darkness of the cave giving way to a soft, flickering light that illuminated the stone walls around him. And there, seated cross-legged on a flat rock, was Dinjo-Ty. The master was a small, wiry man, his face lined with age, his eyes dark and piercing, a gaze that seemed to cut through the darkness, assessing Andrew with a silent intensity. He was clad in simple clothing, his posture relaxed yet powerful, a quiet presence that filled the chamber, radiating a sense of authority that needed no words. "So you have come," Dinjo-Ty said, his voice low, rough, carrying a weight that seemed to through the chamber. "And you have survived the sea, the sharks, the passage. But do you understand the price of the knowledge you seek?" Andrew met the master's gaze, his expression calm, unyielding. "I've come to learn, to understand the depth of escrima, its roots, its secrets." Dinjo-Ty studied him for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if searching for something hidden beneath the surface. "Escrima is not just an art. he replied quietly. It is a tool, a weapon, a force. Its power lies not only in technique, but in the willingness to destroy, to end life. What I will teach you is not for defense, but for death. Do you accept this truth? Andrew nodded, his gaze unwavering. I understand. But I believe there is strength beyond death, beyond destruction. I believe there is a way to honor the power of escrima without using it to harm. The master's expression softened, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, as if he had found a glimmer of respect for the young man standing before him. Then you must show me that strength, he said, his voice quiet but filled with a quiet challenge. Prove to me that you can master the forbidden techniques without succumbing to the lure of power, to the need for dominance. And so, under Dinjo-Ty's watchful gaze, Andrew began his training, immersing himself in the deadly art of escrima, mastering techniques that were swift, brutal, designed to kill with precision and efficiency. He moved through the drills with a grace that spoke of control, of a mind untouched by fear, each strike, each block executed with a precision that reflected his dedication, his discipline. Days turned into weeks, each session pushing Andrew to new limits, forcing him to confront the darkness within, the temptation of power that lurked beneath the surface of every technique. He felt the weight of the knowledge he was acquiring, the responsibility that came with mastering an art designed for destruction. But through it all, a quiet understanding began to settle over him, a belief that the true power of escrima lay not in its ability to end life, but in the beauty of its movements, the grace, the discipline that it required. He felt a silent strength in the techniques, a power that transcended violence, a sense of peace that came from control, from the choice to protect rather than destroy. One evening, as he completed a particularly complex drill, Dinjo-Ty watched him with a thoughtful expression, a quiet respect filling his gaze. You have learned well, he said softly, his voice filled with a hint of pride. But I see now that you are not like the others. You seek not power, but purpose. Andrew met his gaze, a calm resolve filling his expression. I believe there is a way to honor this art without using it to harm, a way to find strength in peace. Dinjo-Ty nodded, a small approving smile breaking through his stern expression. Then go, Andrew. Take what you have learned and find your path. Let the art guide you, transform it, shape it into something new, something that reflects your heart. And so, Andrew returned to the forest, carrying with him the teachings, the knowledge he had gained from Dinjo-Ty, a belief that he could create something different, something that honored the roots of escrima while embracing the power of peace. Back home, in the quiet of the forest, he let the movements flow through him, each technique transformed, softened, reshaped into a philosophy that valued control, resilience, compassion. He felt the power of Kali-Kai take shape within him, an art that was not for death, but for life, a legacy that would inspire, that would bring strength not through fear, but through the quiet, unyielding power of peace. Chapter 40. Baus's Reconciliation, a Visit to His Family. The morning was quiet, the air crisp with a chill that hinted at the coming change of seasons as Baus stood on the edge of the small town he had once called home. The streets were familiar, yet felt distant, like echoes from a life that had belonged to someone else. A man driven by anger, by a need for power that had led him down a path of darkness and regret. But he was no longer that man. Through the teachings of Kali-Kai and the strength he had found in his new community, Baus had transformed, committed to a path of peace and resilience that had changed him profoundly. Still, facing his family, confronting the pain he had caused them, filled him with a quiet trepidation. They had been hurt by his choices, his past actions, and though he now walked a path of redemption, he knew he owed them a moment of reconciliation. of honesty. Andrew's words from the day before lingered in his mind, a reminder of the support, the faith his mentor had placed in him. To truly embrace the peace you've found, boss, you must first find peace with your past. Go to them, show them the man you've become. This is as much a part of your journey as anything else you've done. With a deep breath, Baus walked down the narrow street that led to his family's house, his footsteps steady, his gaze focused. The small, weathered home came into view, a modest building with a sloping roof and a garden out front that his mother had tended with love. The sight of it brought a pang of nostalgia, memories of his younger years flooding back, a time before he had lost himself, before his search for power had led him away from everything that mattered. He approached the door, his heart steady, but his mind filled with 1,000 thoughts, memories, hopes for forgiveness. He raised his hand, hesitating for a moment before he knocked, the sound echoing through the quiet morning. For a brief second, he thought of turning back, of retreating to the safety of the dojo, the community he had come to cherish. But he knew that to truly move forward, he had to face this, to face them. The door opened, and his mother stood there, her face softening as her eyes met his. She looked older, the lines of worry and grief etched into her skin. But there was a warmth in her gaze, a quiet hope that softened the hardness that had once marked their last encounter. "Boss," she said softly, her voice filled with a mixture of surprise and relief. "You're home." Baus swallowed, a surge of emotion filling his chest as he met her gaze. "Yes, Mama," he replied quietly, his voice steady, filled with a reverence, a respect he had once taken for granted. "I've come to make things right if you'll let me." She nodded, her eyes filling with tears as she stepped aside, allowing him to enter. The house was just as he remembered it, the familiar scent of his mother's cooking lingering in the air, the warm glow of sunlight filtering through the windows, casting a gentle light over the room. He felt a sense of peace settle over him, a reminder of the life he had left behind, the family he had hurt in his search for something he now realized he had never truly needed. As he stepped into the living room, he saw his father sitting in an armchair, his posture straight, his expression stoic as he looked up, his gaze sharp, assessing. His father had always been a man of few words, a figure of quiet strength and integrity, qualities that Baus had once resented, viewing them as weakness in a world he believed required dominance. But now, as he looked at his father, Baus felt a deep respect, a gratitude for the lessons his father had tried to instill in him, lessons he had rejected in his pursuit of power. He moved closer, his gaze steady, filled with a quiet humility as he spoke. "Papa," he began, his voice soft, laced with a vulnerability he rarely showed. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, not after everything I've done. But I want you to know, I've changed. I've found a path that isn't about power or fear. It's about peace, about protecting the people I care about." His father studied him for a moment, his gaze penetrating, as if searching for the truth hidden beneath his words, the sincerity that spoke of a transformation, a redemption. At last he nodded, a small, approving smile breaking through his stoic expression. "I can see that, son," he replied quietly, his voice filled with a warmth, a pride that softened the lines of his face. "You carry yourself differently now, like a man who's finally found his way. That's all I ever wanted for you." The words filled Baus with a sense of relief, a weight lifting from his shoulders as he met his father's gaze, a belief that he had finally earned the respect, the acceptance he had once taken for granted. As the day wore on, Baus shared stories of his journey, of the teachings of Kai, the philosophy that had changed his life, given him a purpose, a way to live with honor, with strength that did not rely on fear. His family listened, their faces filled with admiration, with a quiet respect that spoke of pride, a belief that he had truly found his path, that he had returned not as the man he had once been, but as someone new, someone worthy of their love, their forgiveness. At last, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the room, his mother placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze filled with a quiet pride, a love that had never faltered, even in the darkest moments. "We've missed you, boss," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "But we're proud of you, of the man you've become. You've found a way to bring peace, not just to others but to yourself. And that is a gift." Baus felt a tear slip down his cheek, a sense of peace settling over him as he met her gaze, a belief that he had finally come home, not just to his family, but to himself. The path he had chosen, the philosophy that had grounded him, had brought him full circle, allowing him to make amends, to find forgiveness, to embrace the legacy of Kai with a heart that was whole, unburdened by the shadows of his past. As he prepared to leave, his father embraced him, a rare gesture of affection that spoke of a bond renewed, a belief that they could move forward together as a family, grounded in the strength, the resilience that defined them. And as Baus walked down the quiet street, his heart filled with gratitude, with a newfound sense of purpose, he knew that he was no longer alone, that he was part of a family, a community that valued him not for the man he had once been, but for the man he had chosen to become. And with that belief, he returned to the dojo, ready to embrace his role, his legacy, with a heart that was whole, a mind that was clear, a commitment to a path of peace that would guide him, ground him, for the rest of his life. Chapter 41. Max and Stacy's dedication, honoring the journey. The dojo was quiet, the morning sun casting soft beams of light through the large windows that lined one wall, illuminating the space with a warm, peaceful glow. Max stood in the center of the mat, his kali sticks resting lightly in his hands, as he moved through a familiar sequence of flutters and flaps, each movement grounded, focused, filled with a calm intensity that spoke of his dedication to Kai. Stacy stood nearby, her face a mixture of concentration and joy as she mirrored his movements, her posture steady, her grip on the hilt of her kali sticks firm but gentle. They had trained side by side for months now, growing not just in skill, but in the strength, the resilience that Kai had taught them. A strength that was rooted in compassion, in peace, in a belief that they could find power without harm. As they moved through the sequence, Max felt a sense of gratitude wash over him, a recognition of how far he had come since he had first stepped into the dojo, uncertain, hesitant, carrying the weight of his insecurities, his doubts. But Kai had given him something he hadn't known he needed, a sense of purpose, a belief in himself, a path that was grounded not in fear, but in strength that went beyond the physical. He paused, lowering his kali sticks as he turned to Stacy, a small, encouraging smile breaking through his concentration. "You're getting really good, Stacy," he said, his voice filled with admiration, with a quiet pride. "Your movements are more controlled, more precise. It's like you're really starting to understand the flow." Stacy's face lit up, a shy smile tugging at the corners of her mouth as she glanced down, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "Thanks, Max. I've been practicing a lot. Kai. It feels like home, like I belong here." She looked up, her gaze steady, filled with determination. "And I want to keep getting better. I want to make Andrew proud." Max nodded, understanding exactly what she meant, the depth of her commitment, her desire to honor the philosophy that had become a part of them. "Me too," he replied softly, his voice filled with conviction. "Andrew's given us so much, strength, guidance, a place where we can find peace. And I think it's time for us to give back, to dedicate ourselves to carrying on what he's taught us." They shared a quiet moment, a silent understanding passing between them, a belief that they were ready to take on a new role, to embrace the legacy of Kai, not just as students, but as mentors, guides for the next generation. Max felt a surge of purpose, a belief that he could help others find the same strength, the same peace that he had found here, a belief that he could continue the journey, the legacy that Andrew had started. When Andrew entered the dojo, his presence filled the space with a calm authority, a grounding force that reminded them of the strength, the wisdom that had guided them. He watched Max and Stacy with a small, approving smile, his gaze filled with pride as he took in their dedication, their commitment to the path they had chosen. "You both have come a long way," he said quietly, his voice filled with warmth, with a belief that resonated through the room. "Kai isn't just a practice for you anymore. It's become a part of who you are, a way of life." Max nodded, a quiet pride filling his gaze as he met Andrew's eyes. "It has, Andrew. And Stacy and I, we want to continue what you've started. We want to help others find the peace, the strength that we've found here." Andrew's face softened, his expression filled with a quiet gratitude, a belief in the legacy they were building together. "That's the true heart of Kai," he replied gently. "To find strength in peace, to pass on the resilience, the compassion that defines us. You both have embodied those values, not just in your movements, but in your hearts." He motioned for them to sit, settling down on the mat as they joined him, their faces filled with respect, with a quiet reverence for the man who had become their mentor, their guide. "I want you to remember," Andrew began, his voice calm, steady, filled with purpose, "that Kai isn't about perfection. It's not about mastering every technique or becoming the strongest in the room. It's about finding a strength that goes beyond the physical, a resilience that allows us to protect, to preserve peace, to walk a path of compassion." Max listened intently, his gaze steady, a quiet determination filling his heart. He understood that this was his path, his purpose, a way to give back, to honor the teachings that had transformed him, that had given him a way to live with intention, with strength that did not rely on power, but on peace. Stacy placed a hand on her collie sticks, a small reverent gesture that spoke of her dedication, her commitment to the path they had chosen. "Andrew," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude, with a belief that shone through her words. "Thank you for everything, for teaching us that we can find strength, not in fear, but in peace. Kai has given us so much, and we want to make you proud, to carry on what you've built here." Andrew smiled, his gaze filled with pride, a quiet contentment that reflected his belief in them, in the legacy they would continue, the path they would walk with integrity, with honor. "You already have, Stacy. Both of you. The dedication you've shown, the resilience, the compassion. It's all a testament to the journey you've taken, to the strength you've found within yourselves." He rose, his movements calm, grounded, a silent reminder of the control, the discipline that defined Kai. "Let's train together," he said, his voice filled with purpose, a belief that they were not just students but partners, guides who would carry the legacy of Kai forward. Max and Stacy stood, their faces filled with determination, with a quiet resolve as they took their places on the mat, their collie sticks steady in their hands. Andrew led them through a series of advanced techniques, each movement executed with precision, with a grace that spoke of their mastery, their understanding of the principles that grounded them. They moved in unison, their bodies flowing through the drills, each flutter, each flap a reflection of the discipline, the resilience that had come to define them. Max felt a sense of purpose fill him, a belief that he was part of something greater, a legacy that would continue to inspire, to guide others along a path of peace, of compassion. As the session came to an end, Andrew placed a hand on Max's shoulder, a silent gesture of trust, of respect. "Max," he said quietly, his voice filled with warmth, with a quiet pride. "You have the heart of a teacher, the spirit of a warrior. One day this dojo will be yours, to guide, to protect, to carry on the legacy of Cali-Kai." Max felt a surge of gratitude, a belief that he was exactly where he was meant to be, that he had found a purpose that would guide him, ground him for the rest of his life. He looked at Andrew, his gaze steady, filled with a quiet determination. "I won't let you down, Andrew. I'll honor the legacy you've built, the philosophy that has given me strength, purpose." Andrew nodded, a small, approving smile breaking through his calm expression. "I know you will, Max. And you, Stacy. You both have become more than students. You've become guardians of Cali-Kai, protectors of a philosophy that values peace, resilience, compassion." Stacy's face lit up with pride, a quiet resolve filling her gaze as she met Andrew's eyes, a belief that she was part of something greater, a legacy that would continue to inspire, to guide others along a path of strength, of peace. They stood in silence for a moment, a sense of unity, of purpose settling over them, a belief that they were not just students, but part of a legacy that valued peace, resilience, and the courage to choose a path of compassion. And as they looked around the dojo, the space that had become their sanctuary, their home, they knew that they were ready to carry on the journey, to honor the teachings that had transformed them, that had given them a way to live with integrity, with strength that was grounded not in power, but in peace. They were the next generation of Cali-Kai, guardians of a philosophy that valued the heart, the spirit, the strength to walk a path of resilience, of compassion. And with that belief, they embraced their roles, their commitment to a legacy that would continue to inspire, to guide others along a path of peace, a legacy grounded in the heart, the resilience that defined Cali-Kai. Chapter 42. A Celebration of Unity. Dojo Anniversary. The dojo was transformed, its walls adorned with banners and garlands, the soft glow of lanterns casting a warm light over the space. The air buzzed with excitement, the sound of laughter and friendly chatter filling the room as students, their families, and members of the community gathered to celebrate the anniversary of Cali-Kai. Tables lined the sides of the room, covered with homemade dishes contributed by families, each one a reminder of the unity, the spirit of generosity that defined the dojo. Max stood near the entrance, watching the crowd with a mixture of pride and gratitude. The journey that had brought him here, that had shaped him, seemed almost surreal, and tonight he felt a profound sense of purpose, a belief that he was part of something greater than himself, a legacy of peace and resilience that had transformed him and everyone around him. He turned as Stacy joined him, her face glowing with excitement, her collie stick strapped to her side, a silent testament to the commitment, the strength she had found through Cali-Kai. She gave him a warm smile, her gaze filled with the same gratitude that filled his heart. "Can you believe it?" she said, her voice filled with awe as she took in the room, the faces of people who had come together not just to celebrate, but to honor the philosophy that had brought them here. "We're part of something incredible, Max. Cali-Kai isn't just a dojo, it's a family, a place where we've all found strength and peace." Max nodded, his expression filled with admiration as he looked around, taking in the smiles, the laughter, the quiet moments of reflection that filled the room. "It really is, Stacy. And tonight, we get to share that with everyone. We get to honor everything Cali-Kai has given us." As they made their way through the crowd, they passed Lori and Thomas, who stood near a table, talking with some of the other parents. Lori caught Max's eye and gave him a small, proud smile, a reminder of the journey they had taken together, the strength they had found, not just within themselves, but in each other. Andrew, the heart of Kai, stood near the front of the room, his face calm, filled with a quiet pride as he watched his students, his community, sharing in the joy, the unity that had become the foundation of the dojo. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the moment, a belief that everything he had worked for, everything he had taught, had come to fruition in the lives, the transformations of the people before him. As the evening progressed, he gathered everyone together, motioning for them to take their seats on the mats, creating a circle that filled the room with a sense of unity, a belief that they were all part of something greater, something that would continue to grow, to inspire. Andrew stepped into the center, his gaze moving from face to face, taking in the students who had become his family, the friends, the mentors, the children who had found strength, resilience through Kai. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice filled with warmth, with gratitude. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating an anniversary. We're honoring the journey we've all taken, the transformations, the growth that has brought us together, that has made Kai not just a dojo, but a family." He looked over at Max and Stacy, a small, encouraging smile breaking through his calm expression. "Tonight, we have a special story to share, a story that reflects the heart, the resilience that defines Kai. Max and Stacy, would you share your journey with us, how Kai has become a part of who you are?" Max glanced at Stacy, a mixture of nerves and excitement in his gaze, before they stood together, moving to the center of the circle. Max took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts, his heart steady as he began to speak, his voice filled with a quiet confidence. "When I first came to Kai," he began, his voice soft but filled with conviction, "I was lost. I felt like I had no direction, like everything that had once defined me was gone. I had been through a lot, an accident that changed my life, that made me question who I was, what I was capable of. And then my mom brought me here, to this dojo, to a place where I found not just strength, but purpose." He paused, his gaze moving over the faces around him, the quiet support, the admiration that filled their eyes, a reminder of the family he had found, the community that had given him a way to heal, to grow. "Kai taught me that strength isn't just about physical power. It's about resilience, about finding a way to protect, to preserve, without causing harm. It's about choosing peace, about finding the courage to stand, not for dominance, but for compassion. And that's something I want to carry forward, something I want to share with others." Stacy took a step forward, her expression filled with gratitude as she met the gaze of her friends, her mentors, the people who had given her a sense of belonging, a place where she could find strength, not despite her challenges, but because of them. "When I first came here," she began, her voice filled with a quiet pride, "I was scared. I didn't know if I could keep up, if I would ever be strong enough to stand with all of you. But Kai taught me that strength isn't about being the best or the fastest. It's about finding your own path, your own way to stand, to protect, to choose peace." She glanced at Max, a small, encouraging smile breaking through her nervousness as she continued, her voice filled with a newfound confidence. "Together, Max and I have found a family here, a community that has given us a place to grow, to find a way to live with purpose. And I want to thank each of you for your support, for your friendship, for everything you've given us." The room was silent, a shared understanding filling the space, a belief that they were all part of something greater, a legacy of peace, resilience that would continue to inspire, to guide others along the path of Kai. Andrew stepped forward, his face filled with pride, a quiet respect for the journey, the transformation that Max and Stacy had undergone, a reminder of the power, the strength that lay within each of them. "Max and Stacy," he said softly, his voice filled with warmth. You are the embodiment of Kai's values, your journey, your resilience. It's a testament to the strength that lies in peace, in compassion. And I know that each of you will carry that strength forward, will inspire others to find the same courage, the same belief in themselves. He turned to the rest of the dojo, his gaze filled with a quiet pride, a belief that they were part of a legacy, a philosophy that valued peace, resilience, the courage to walk a path of compassion. Kai is more than a martial art, he said, his voice steady, filled with conviction. It's a way of life, a philosophy that values strength not in dominance, but in the ability to protect, to preserve peace. And tonight, as we celebrate our journey, our growth, I want to thank each of you for your dedication, your commitment, your belief in this path. He raised his kali sticks, a silent gesture of respect, of unity, as the students followed suit, their faces filled with pride, a belief that they were part of something that would continue to grow, to inspire, a legacy grounded in peace, in resilience, in the heart of Kai. As the celebration continued, laughter, joy, and reflection filled the dojo, a reminder of the unity, the strength they had found together. And as the night wore on, they knew that they were not just students, but guardians of a legacy, a philosophy that would continue to inspire, to guide others, a testament to the power of peace, the strength of resilience, a belief in the heart, the spirit of Kai. Chapter 43, Legacy of Peace, a new chapter begins. The dojo was bathed in the golden glow of the late afternoon sun, a soft light that seemed to illuminate every corner of the space, filling it with warmth, with a sense of peace that had come to define Kai. Andrew stood near the entrance, his gaze sweeping over the room as he took in the familiar faces of his students, his friends, his family. Lori, Max, Thomas, Stacy, and Baus were gathered around him, each of them a testament to the journey they had taken together, the resilience they had found, the transformation that had brought them here. Today marked not just another day at the dojo, but the beginning of a new chapter, a future that promised to carry the teachings of Kai beyond these walls, to inspire others, to create a legacy that valued strength not in power, but in peace, in compassion. As the group stood together, a quiet anticipation filled the air, a shared understanding that they were all part of something greater, a legacy that would continue to grow, to inspire others along a path of balance, resilience, and unity. Andrew looked at each of them, a small, proud smile breaking through his calm expression. "You've all come so far," he began, his voice filled with warmth, with gratitude. Kai has grown, not just as a dojo, but as a community, a family. And as we move forward, I know that each of you will carry these teachings, these values, into the world, to create a legacy that goes beyond ourselves. Max stepped forward, his face filled with determination, a quiet pride as he looked at Andrew, a belief that he was ready to take on the responsibility, to carry the principles of Kai to others. "Andrew," he said, his voice steady, filled with conviction, "we're here because of you. Because you believed in us, in the strength we could find in peace. And as we move forward, we'll honor that. We'll carry that strength with us, to teach others, to continue the journey you've started." Stacy nodded, a small, grateful smile lighting up her face as she looked around at her friends, her family, a belief that she was part of something that would continue to inspire, to guide others. "Kai isn't just a place or a practice," she added softly, her voice filled with warmth. "It's a way to live, a way to find strength, resilience, a belief in peace that goes beyond words, that's rooted in our actions, our choices." As they spoke, Andrew felt a sense of fulfillment settle over him, a quiet belief that the legacy he had dedicated his life to would endure, that it would continue to inspire, to create a path of peace, of resilience for generations to come. But as they prepared to move forward, an unexpected figure entered the dojo, his presence casting a ripple of silence, a sense of surprise through the group. Raja stood in the doorway, his posture calm, his gaze steady as he looked around the room, taking in the faces of the people who had become Andrew's family, his community. There was a hint of something different in his expression, a quiet respect that softened the harsh lines of his face, a belief that he had come not as an adversary, but as someone seeking peace, seeking understanding. Andrew stepped forward, his gaze calm, unflinching as he met Raja's eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had taken together, the battles they had fought, the beliefs that had once divided them. "Raja," Andrew said softly, his voice filled with a quiet strength, a belief in the path he had chosen, the legacy he had created. "What brings you here?" Raja hesitated for a moment, his gaze thoughtful, filled with a quiet reverence as he took in the room, the people who had come to embody the values, the philosophy that Andrew had championed. "I've come to understand something," he began, his voice low, rough but filled with sincerity. "I've learned of your journey, your training with Dinjo-Ty, and the permission he gave you to walk your own path, to choose peace." He paused, a small, reluctant smile breaking through his expression as he continued, his voice softer, filled with a respect he rarely showed. "Dinjo-Ty, he taught me as well. But he never offered me that choice. For years, I believed that strength could only be found in power, in the ability to dominate. But seeing what you've created here, I realize now that there's another way, a way that values balance, that finds strength not in fear, but in resilience." Andrew listened intently, a quiet understanding filling his gaze as he took in Raja's words, a belief that even those who had once been adversaries could find a path to peace, a belief that the legacy of Kai could reach beyond the walls of the dojo, beyond the boundaries of their community. "You have always been a man of strength, Raja," he replied softly, his voice filled with warmth, with compassion. "But true strength isn't found in the ability to control others. It's found in the ability to master oneself, to choose a path of peace even when the world demands otherwise." Raja nodded, a small, thoughtful smile breaking through his expression, a belief that he was ready to embrace a new path, a path that valued resilience, compassion, a strength that went beyond the physical. "I came here to make amends," he said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity, with a quiet humility. "To honor the legacy you've created, the strength you've found in peace, and to tell you that I will no longer stand in your way, that I will carry forward the teachings of Dinjo-Ty with a belief that strength can be found in balance." Andrew placed a hand on Raja's shoulder, a silent gesture of respect, of unity. "Thank you, Raja," he replied softly, his voice filled with gratitude, with a quiet pride. "The path we walk isn't always easy, but it's a path that values peace, that seeks resilience, that finds strength in the heart, in the choice to protect without harm. And together, we can continue that legacy, can inspire others to walk a path of compassion, of peace." The students watched in silence, their faces filled with admiration, with respect as they took in the moment, a reminder of the unity, the resilience that had come to define Kai, a belief that they were all part of something greater, a legacy that would continue to grow, to inspire future generations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the dojo, Andrew gathered his students, his family, his friends together, creating a circle that filled the room with a sense of unity, a belief that they were all part of a legacy, a philosophy that valued peace, resilience, and the courage to walk a path of compassion. "Tonight," he began, his voice filled with warmth, with gratitude, "we're not just celebrating an anniversary or the growth of Kai. We're honoring the legacy we've built together, the journey we've taken, the strength we've found in each other, in ourselves. Cali-Kai is more than a dojo. It's a way of life, a belief that we can find strength not in fear, but in resilience, in compassion. He looked around the circle, his gaze moving from face to face, taking in the students who had become his family, the friends, the mentors, the children who had found strength, resilience through Cali-Kai. As we move forward, he continued, his voice steady, filled with conviction, I want each of you to remember that this legacy isn't just about technique or skill. It's about finding a way to live with purpose, with integrity. It's about choosing peace, about finding strength in the heart, in the choice to protect, to preserve. The students raised their kali sticks, a silent gesture of respect, of unity, their faces filled with pride, a belief that they were part of something that would continue to inspire, to guide others along the path of Cali-Kai. And as they stood together, surrounded by the warmth, the strength of the community they had built, Andrew knew that the legacy of Cali-Kai would endure, that it would continue to inspire, to guide future generations along a path of resilience, of peace, a belief that true strength lay not in dominance, but in compassion, in the heart, the spirit of Cali-Kai. This was the beginning of a new chapter, a journey that would continue to grow, to inspire, a legacy grounded in peace, in resilience, a testament to the power of unity, of compassion, a belief that they were all part of something greater, something that would endure, unbroken, unshaken, grounded in the heart, the resilience that defined Cali-Kai.